Hello, and welcome back to Sharing a Chapter a Day. This is Do, Ra, me, and today I will be reading Chapter 121 of Engagement in Peril by Dara, Odoe, Sok. Chapter 121 is titled Shinshin-Igami, Brewing Inside Young Kushina. Several months down the road, during the last winter of 1980, Kushina began showing signs of pregnancy. She was often preoccupied with morning sickness and dizzy spell while returning and resuming her duty at the Sakura bar. She was scared and timid about what was going on with her young, fragile body then. She wasn't sure on how to tell her parent or what should do about this fetus that was gradually developing inside of her. Finally, after several episodes of blood in the stool and in her urine, she finally told her mother what she was experiencing all these recent months. After receiving the information from Kushina, her worried mother informed her husband of Kushina's condition and concerns. After discussing Kushina's situation during a family meeting that evening, Kushina agreed to go with her father to the massive Marine Corps base the next morning to discuss their option with the command about the bastard infant of the late Bradford, who only months ago had tragically killed himself because he had been possessed by demons and realized that he had raped the very girl he adored and longed to talk to, which was living inside of Kushina now. Before going to bed, Kushina's father called one of his fellow officers who spoke English and asked him to call the Marine Corps to schedule a meeting to discuss Kushina's state of health. After about half an hour or so, the family was contacted by the officer's friend and informed that their command will see them tomorrow morning around 0900 hours. They will pick them up by military jeep, then to take them to where they need to be. Also, they have to bring the paper and document that were given to them by the general of the command months earlier. That night, Kushina felt uneasy. She was scared and restless. All throughout through the night, turning side to side, just anticipating what would happen the next morning that when she goes to see an American doctor about her pregnancy. She had nothing to say. She prayed to her ancestors and kin, hoping to find a way to help her put her at ease from all this menacing thought in her head. Eventually, as the night dragged on and morning came about, she fell fast asleep for a few hours before having to wake and make her way for the morning meeting and exam at the United States Marine Corps Base Medical Facility in Okinawa then. After readying and getting dressed, both father and daughter had breakfast together. They had hot soupy rice, porridge with some soy sauce and some side dish of steamed kimchi and salted dried fish. Once their morning meal was done, the two boarded the military jeep that escorted them to their final destination. With the document and paper firmly held in their hand, the warm-hearted local police officer reminded Kushina that she's still his daughter and nothing would change that. He wanted to reassure that no matter what happened, she's still his little girl. That statement was new to Kushina. Unlike him to show any or few of affection toward his kids, with his right hand giving a slight caress against her around her back in his native tongue, he told her that he loves her. It was the first "I love you" in a long time for Kushina from her father then. The last time she remembered those words were spoken to her when she was about 8 years old or so. With her father's assurance and warm-hearted words, she felt warm and content. She was somewhat ready to get through this day and waited for what was to happen to her and her body then. The military jeep drove them to the base medical facility and pulled up to the front entrance where they were greeted by a Navy medical captain who was dressed in his working khaki uniform, covered over with a long white lab coat with a silver metal stethoscope wrapped around his neck. He welcomed Kushina and her father in the best Japanese word he knew. They bowed their greeting to him and followed him inside as he beckoned them to follow. Once inside, they were greeted by a Japanese translator who asked Kushina how she was feeling in their native tongue. Shyly, she stated that her stomach seemed different and that she had been experiencing morning sickness and dizzy spell for several months now. The translator relayed the comment to the medical captain, and advised him that today he would look over and give Kushina a thorough examination. They would need to collect some blood work and give her a physical look over. After having heard the explanation in Japanese and such, Kushina left her father's side and followed a female hospital corpsman to the changing room to get fitted with a medical gown before the procedure could be done onto her. Her father stayed behind with the translator as they discussed the steps that they would take taken and procedure would be done upon Kushina in their treatment and exam room. Hot coffee and some sweet snack off items were brought to her father and their guests as they went over paperwork and documents that they must sign and waive as each procedure and drill was explained to him and then translated to Japanese. Her father followed through with all the steps and such, and if had question or concern, he didn't hesitate to address them. He was making sure that his daughter was getting the proper treatment that was required to find out what was going on with her young body then. While in the exam room, the captain explained each step of the exam to a female translator for the Kushina. With a nurse and a female corpsman assisting him in his procedure to keep Kushina at ease, they worked gently and meticulously on her. They drew several vials of blood, making sure that the sharp sting was quick. The captain examined Kushina's lower body. They worked gently and meticulously on her. They drew several vials of blood, making sure that the sharp sting was quick. The captain examined Kushina's lower body parts and advised her that he will be examining her vaginal region to see how far along she may be now. He made sure that she understood all that he was doing to her. He stopped when needed to give her some time to feel at ease. He didn't worry about how long this would take. He wanted that shy, timid girl to feel at home and didn't want to scare her more than she already was. He examined Kushina's body all over, from head to toe, looking at her eyes' reaction to light, her hearing, her heartbeat, her lungs' function, and her gastrointestinal organs. The medical captain was thorough in all his steps, making sure to document his findings clearly and accurately. He marked and charted each mole and birthmark on her medical sheet and had the female corpsman take some pictures of them. He informed Kushina that the blood work would take several weeks for the result to come back, and with a soft, comfortable smile, he informed Kushina that she was pregnant with child in about 2 months now, and is about 2 months along now. He wasn't sure about the sex of the child, but was sure she was carrying an infant. He also went on to explain that if she decided to keep the baby, the Navy would allow her to do the Navy. If she decided not to keep the baby, the Navy would allow her to abort the child if she chose to. He advised her that she should discuss this with her father and family. From the news, Kushina wasn't sure how to feel. She sort of knew that she may have been impregnated, but wasn't sure how to answer the captain. In her native tongue and with some fear, she answered and She asked the translator, "How am I going to tell this to my father?" The female translator relayed the question to the doctor. He softly replied, "Please tell her that she won't have to do this alone. I will tell her father for her." He warmly smiled toward Kushina. Once she heard the warm statement from the translator, Kushina felt some relief and thanked him in English, in the best way she knew how. He smiled and nodded his head in agreement. After all the exam was done with, and after Kushina was changed back into her clothes she came with, the doctor walked Kushina back to the waiting area where her father and the older male translator were waiting. She walked behind the medical captain, pacing his every step, shy and somewhat fearful to face her loving father then. The medical captain advised the translator that he wanted to take them to his office, where they could have more privacy to discuss Kushina's health and his findings upon her. With the translator reassurance and explanation, they all marched off toward the doctor's office, several yards down the hospital right corridor. "Please be seated," the captain asked, while pointing to several cushioned chairs and a soft sofa situated in a room in front of the large glass window. All three of his guests sat themselves down, Kushina and her father on the couch side by side, and the translator in one of the cushioned chairs. The captain began to explain the exam and finding, what procedures and steps he took to examine Kushina, and what the outcome of the exam was. The captain went over each step thoroughly, making sure that everyone in his office understood what he was telling them. He repeated himself when he needed to. After explaining all the steps and blood work taken, the captain told the final result to Kushina's father. "Mr. Shinigami, it is in my medical understanding and findings that I found Kushina, your daughter, is pregnant with child. She is about 2 months now," he firmly said while looking at Mr. Shinigami. He went on to tell them, "Now, we will have to wait for the blood work to return from the lab to be 100% sure of her pregnancy. But I am quite positive of this, Mrs. Shinigami. I have already told Kushina that if she should decide to abort the infant, that we will be willing to do it for her since she is only 15 years old. I will need your consent to do so, and I advise that you as your family talked it over." We will do whatever we can to help your family in this matter, no matter whether you decide to keep or abort the child. We will be there to aid you in anything you need. The captain went on to advise this to Kushina and her father. From the news, Kushina looked at her father to see how he would react to this sudden news. Her father seemed normal, normal as he can be of a father who just found out that his teenage baby girl is with child. He didn't really show any emotional reaction. He agreed with the doctor's comment to talk it over with his family before deciding further about the future of the growing child and Kushina's warm, changing belly then. After all was spoken of, and all's question and concern were answered, with some signed documents and result, the Shinigami stood up and thanked the good, hearty medical captain for his gentle touch and caring of them. With several bows and handshakes, Kushina and her father was walked out of the medical facility and escorted back to the waiting military jeep and driven back to their humble home several miles down the road from where they had just come from. Thank you for listening. This is the end of Chapter 121. Be on the lookout for Chapter 122, titled The Fate of the Infant Shinshin. This is Do, Ra, me, and I'll see you later. Thank you.